I'm back to making top 10s again! I'm back! I don't know how this keeps happening, but time and time again I fall out of the groove of making top 10s, which is weird because they're like one of the funnest types of videos to make, but you know, it's because I'm actually good at following a schedule, which is weird because YouTubers usually suck at following schedules. But the thing is, you know, when I started making my new schedule, I made sure to include top 10s on that schedule, so I actually sat down and made them. So with all of that said, let's roll that title card!
Hello, YouTube, and welcome to Heathen Games Top 10 Secondary Weapons in Video Games! An opinion piece. Ever since the invention of video games, almost every single video game has been about killing. There's just no getting around it. Hitting something until it falls down is a very easy concept for us to wrap our caveman brains around. And talking stuff out or going on journeys with subjective goals, well, it's just much harder to program. So in all of these games about killing, you're gonna need weapons. But when the belt on your chain gun runs through, or the enemy you're fighting gets to a range where your sword isn't gonna be effective any longer, what are you gonna do?
Well, ladies and gents, I have just the thing for you. A secondary weapon. 10 of them.
That's what this list's about. So what constitutes a secondary weapon? Well, sometimes a game just comes out and says it. Sometimes it's assigned to a certain button that you don't press that much. And for the most part, they really can't be switched out. At least not to the extent that the primary weapons can. So for this list, I'm usually going to explain what the primary weapon is, and hopefully I'll be able to explain what makes the secondary weapon so good. Whether it complements it, or it's just fun to use. That makes the list, so here we go! Alright, let's start this list off with a terrible example. I considered the Halo games for all of 1 second and then dismissed them. You don't really have secondary weapons in this game. You have 2 primary weapons that you can switch out at will. Want a submachine gun? Take it. Want a plasma rifle in your other slot? Awesome! However, you may have noticed that I'm playing Halo ODST. That's kind of a weird Halo game if you have the whole series to choose from, right? Well, I love the pistol in ODST. Even after playing Halo Combat Evolved, I don't see why people call that pistol the harbinger of the end time. It isn't really that great. But this thing? I consider Halo ODST's pistol a secondary weapon because I will never go anywhere without it. It is easily my favorite gun. Fighting some grunts? Whip this out, line up the headshots, and pap 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 pap, take them all out. Fighting a brute? Use a plasma rifle to whittle away his shields, then switch to the pistol and pap pap, dead. If you're good at getting headshots, and let's be honest, with Bungie's aiming assist, you really should be, this gun should always be one tap of the Y button away. But it should never be your main weapon. But hey, if that's not a good enough argument for you, plasma grenades, a signature weapon of the Halo series that's so satisfying to use.
Actually, I like the spike grenade a little bit more, but I don't actually have any footage of that, so plasma is pretty good. It's alright. It's acceptable. Number 9!
Alright, so when thinking up this list, I looked at my NES Classic and I saw Castlevania, and I just knew it had to be here. It's got a lot of good secondary weapons, and it was a real toss-up between the axe and the stopwatch, but I ultimately decided to go with the stopwatch, because while the axe is more satisfying to use, it's also very situational. But the stopwatch? You can use it on the first 2 bosses to make it so you don't even have to try against them. But while I was capturing footage, I found an even better use. You see, even a year after playing this game, I remember some of the stupidest parts of the levels with a very certain amount of dread. But with the stopwatch, I can just freeze time and walk past some of those troublesome parts of the game. Awesome! I love Star Fox 64. To this day, that video that I did with Uncle Al is still one of my favorites. And wouldn't you know it, this game has something that fits my description of secondary weapon to a T. The Smart Bomb. Shooting things with a laser is all good and dandy, but there are some points in this game where there are so many enemies on the screen that really your only choice is to detonate some weapon-grade explosives. Yep, 2 real standout moments for the bomb is Zonus and Aquas. Let's talk about Aquas first. Now, whenever I hear people talk about this level, it's with real hate. Now, I gotta say, why? I actually know the reason why. It's because Aquas is so dang dark. Well, I'm guessing that everybody like me has a Japanese copy of this game because Slippy explains that we have unlimited torpedoes and that you can keep firing them to light up the level. That's a really cool mechanic. It works as a necessary light source and a weapon. Next is the Boss of Zonus. Now this is a super cool and unique boss because unlike the other bosses, lasers don't hurt him. You have to use bombs. And I think this is a really cool change of pace, from having to use bombs sparingly to liberally. But the best thing to do with bombs is to take down an entire fleet. Oh, or you're out. Yeah, Falco, I have no clue what you're saying, man. Okay, so for this list, I couldn't really think up 10 things, so I called up my buddy Scott, and he suggested Vigors from Bioshock. And yeah, that's a really good idea. I mean, I only have infinite, so I can't really choose the bee power-up, but I can choose the birds.
Well, I guess you can call that a murder of crap. Ow! Why?
This game is awesome. In any other Star Wars game where you use Force Push, they just kind of get pushed back. And it's a little inconvenient, or they might die, but it's nothing too dramatic. But in Force Unleashed, well, there's a little more oomph behind it. So with all the awesome and powerful attacks you have at your disposal, the one I'm selecting is the one that happens when you press the Y button, which, as anyone who's played this game can tell you, is Force Lightning. But no, you might have noticed on the title card there weren't any zappy zaps. It was a hand. Darth Vader's hand, to be specific. So for most of the game, you play as Dark Icky and you have access to Force Lightning. But this game has an awesome tutorial where you are in control of Darth Vader. But Vader can't shoot lightning, because it'll kill him. But what he does have access to is Force Choke, which, let's be honest, is about 100 times cooler. Why would you want to zippity zap a Wookiee when you can pick it up by its throat, break its fragile neck, and then chuck its lifeless body away like a piece of trash? There is no reason. I love this power. Let me use this power in the main game. Oh, I can just stay on this bridge all day doing this. Actually, you know what? That is fine. It's kind of relaxing even if in sort of a sadistic serial killer type of way. Now for XCOM, you got a lot of choices for secondary weapons. You got needle grenades, you got gas grenades, you got ghost grenades, you know, if you want to blow up ghosts, I guess. Combine that with the regular grenades and the alien ones, and you've got a lot of choices for handheld death. But these are not my picks. Let me ask you, out of the 4 XCOM classes, which one do you think you could make an entire squad out of and still do good? Support? Maybe. Assault? You probably don't want to do up close and personal combat exclusively. Maybe snipers? If you do this...
Stop it. Get some help.
Heavies? Well, they've got that heavy machine gun, and best of all, missiles. If you get yourself the second missile and a shredder missile, every single one of your characters is carrying an entire armory of explosive ordnance. Seriously, to capture footage for this part, I made teams completely composed of heavy units, and I did great! Just destroying every single enemy squad with volleys of missiles was so much fun! And that's why number 5 is the missile launcher. Or at least it would have been, but then Valens made me the blaster launcher. Tell me, what's better than a missile that can fly straight to an enemy, do 7 damage, and blow up their cover? A green ball that can move her around cover to the perfect location and do 12 damage. The rocket launcher is a great weapon, but the best secondary weapon from XCOM Enemy Within is the blaster launcher.
Hey, where are we going?
Okay, so I have a lot of hours in Left 4 Dead 2. It is a fun time killing zombies. But the secondary weapon here is a tie, because I love both of the weapons that were added into Valve's sequel. So in this game, you always have a backup weapon and you can find yourself a throwing weapon. So I just want to talk about my 2 favorites. Number 1 is the backup weapon. In the original Left 4 Dead, you could get yourself a pair of pistols. 15 shots per pistols gave you 30 shots. But they were so weak, nothing more than a wasp bite. It would hurt the zombies, but without a headshot, you weren't going to lay anyone down. But in the sequel, we got melee weapons, which was great for taking down zombies for good. But if you got knocked down onto the ground, you were going to be in a lot of trouble with nothing more than baby's first handgun. But they also added the Desert Cobra. 8 shots, and that's all you need. The common infected needed just one of these bullets to their chest to be laid down flat. Whenever I have my choice of weapons in this game, I will always
get out my little Desert Eagle.
As As for the throwing weapons, we have a pipe bomb, which kills everything after 10 seconds in an explosion, and is really great for getting out of a pinch. And you always need one member of your party to be carrying a Molotov, just in case you run into the tank. But my favorite weapon is the Bile Jar. In this game, there's an enemy known as the Boomer. Its main attack is to puke on you, which will temporarily blind you and cause a horde of zombies to rush towards you. In this game's sequel, they gave this power to the humans by putting some puke in a jar. Much like the pipe bomb, it will attract all of the zombies towards it. And you can even use it to cause them to sprint into a fire. Or you can use it like a Molotov. Hit the tank with it, and not only is he blind, but he also has all of the zombies dogpile onto him. The Magnum and the Bio Bomb are my favorite secondary weapons from Left 4 Dead 2. Ah, didn't see this one coming, did ya? The Fireball from Super Mario Bros. You're probably thinking, wait, in the original game you didn't really have an attack, and if you do, this is it. It's not secondary. That's where you are mistaken. Mario has an attack that he always has access to. The thing that Miyamoto believes that makes all Mario games great, the ease and the feel of the jump. It is something that you always have access to take out the enemies. But if you can avoid taking damage long enough, you can earn yourself a Fire Flower. I mean, after you get it, it becomes your primary attack. Why risk something as sloppy and imprecise as a jump when you can hand-deliver a fireball to the enemy's face? But before you get to that state, and after you take a hit, and heck, even while wielding it, the jump is always there to be depended on. But hey, I put it this high on the list because, as long as you have it, the level design is essentially broken with how powerful this secondary weapon is. Is anybody familiar with the Spike TV show Deadliest Warrior? Well, it was one of my favorite TV shows of all time. Each week, these guys would get together and choose two warriors from history, like Shaolin Monk and Maori Warrior. Then they'd get some weapon experts to come in and demonstrate the killing power of said weapons. Then they'd punch the numbers into a computer, and then they'd tell us who would win in a fight between the two of them. It was a pretty popular show, and it translates beautifully into video games. I think there's like a chivalry mode based off of it, and there were also 2 fighting video games based off the show. Well, I downloaded those games on the Xbox 360, but it can only accept 16 character long passwords, and my password is now 22 characters long, so I can't access any of the games or DLC that I bought on my Xbox 360. So stupid. Now, if a normal person were faced with this dilemma, they'd probably just choose a different pick. But not me. I am so convinced that this is the second best secondary weapon that I scoured all of YouTube to find all the footage that I could of it. So, one of the contestants on Deadliest Warrior was a knight, a noble swordsman encased in steel. With his arsenal, he should have done amazingly, except he must have picked the short straw because he had to face the black powder wielding pirate. And in the game, he is a beast. But not with the flintlock pistol. No, the weapon that makes him a monster is his blunderbuss. I mean, look at these 2 videos that I stole. It is a one-shot kill. You're having people fighting with swords and spears, but then you allow one character to pull out a shotgun. Easily the best ranged weapon in the game. Actually, it's probably the best weapon in the game. Seriously, the damage dealt with a successful blunderbuss shot makes it one of the best secondary weapons in all video games. Heck, damage-wise, it should be number 1. But the winner of this list has a little more versatility.
I need a bigger gun. And a new shoe.
Now, The Legend of Zelda has so many choices. If I went with Soul Calibur, I could choose his boomerang, bow, or bomb. But Deadliest Warrior is the fighting game that I chose. If I chose Breath of the Wild, I could go with the Sheikah Slate. There's like 4 weapons on that, and they are so much fun to solve puzzles with. But for my money, I'm going with Ocarina. So many items to choose from, but what is the best one? The hookshot, not the best ranged weapon, but in my opinion, the funnest. For most of its combat, it merely stuns the foe, but in the Water Temple, it is the only ranged weapon that you can use under the sea. But the reason it is number 1 is because it is so fun to point, shoot, and then zip across the room. Ah, bliss. I put something at the top of a list of weapons that isn't even fun when it's being used as a weapon. I
I'm a genius! So if you want more top 10s that aren't even good at following the own rules they set forth and video game reviews that are just as mediocre, go ahead and subscribe! Last week I did Ocarina of Time, next week I'm doing Watch Dogs. I have a schedule and I follow it.